case study on cybersecurity specialist Palo Alto Networks. I'm joined by two executives from Palo Alto Networks, Jonathan Morgan, Senior Director for Demand, Inventory, and Spares Planning. Hello, Jonathan.
Hello, thanks for having me.
And Nicholas Satish. He is Senior S&OP Analyst with Palo Alto Networks. Hello, Nicholas.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And also we are joined today by Evan Kwasny. He is Vice President of Solutions Marketing with Anaplan. Hello, Evan.
Hi, Robert. Thanks for having me, and thank you, Palo Alto Networks, for participating today.
Thanks to everybody for participating. So I want to start by asking Jonathan just to give me a quick description of who is Palo Alto Networks. What do you guys do?
Sure. You kind of touched on it in the intro, but we're a global leader in cybersecurity, focusing on next-gen firewalls, appliances, cloud, endpoint, and analytics solutions.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Now, Jonathan, with regard to this case study involving your partnership with Anaplan, what was the original challenge to be addressed?
So we were using a tool for supply planning and some of our S&OP functionality, and we were looking to replace that tool. And our challenge was to replicate that capability and the business results in a relatively short period of time of implementation.
Okay. That being the case, I imagine you had a lot of options out there as to who to partner with. How did you come to choose Anaplan, Jonathan?
Yeah, we did evaluate multiple tools. I won't go into the actual list, but we ended up choosing Anaplan based on the flexibility, the scalability, the user interface, and the price that we saw compared to other tools in the market.
And Evan, how did it strike you as an engagement? How did they come to you? And was this kind of in your ballpark already as the type of customer you had already served?
You know, it's a good question. One of the things that we see oftentimes is customers such as Palo Alto Networks is they're starting that journey towards improving their S&OP processes, looking for the right blend of capabilities across the board at a price point that's going to be very beneficial for their organization. So it's a pretty common topic and challenge we see occurring writ large across the industry as lots of organizations are driving towards having a better connected sales, supply chain, and financial set of processes.
Of course, cybersecurity is top of mind today in a way it never has been before. So it's especially critical to be moving in that direction. Okay, so you choose Anaplan. They're the ones you want to go through. Nick, tell me what was involved in implementing this solution.
So Robert, like Jonathan mentioned, our goal was to replicate what we already had on the tool, and that involved our demand planning, forecast disaggregation, our supply planning, and component forecasting. And we started with training all the users in Anaplan. We actually had them do model building training, and this helped them to be really familiar with the tool as we went during UAT. As always, you start with the data, right? So we made a list of all the data objects we would need, not just now, but in the future, because it's always easy to add the data at the first. Otherwise, you've got to pull in your IT team, and it takes a long time to pull in that data. And then we started doing model building. We did a lot of model building. Even though we had consultants, we tried to do the model building with our in-house developers so that we will be able to support after they are gone, right? And we also made sure that we were constantly doing demos to users on a regular basis and getting continuous feedback almost daily. And this way, there were no major surprises when we did UAT, and especially since we were on a very tight timeline, we were able to do a smooth transition to go live and deployment.
But meanwhile, the business is going on as usual. I mean, you've got the car going at 70 miles an hour and you're kind of changing the tires, so to speak, a little bit. So was that a challenge? I mean, bringing on board people in your organization who had to do their day-to-day business at the same time helped to implement a rather complex and sweeping solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Because in prior experiences, if we didn't bring them in earlier on, and then we started UAT, there were a lot of surprises and a lot of rework required. This way, we made sure that they knew that they had to set aside some time during the development processes, and we made sure that we got constant feedback from them.
Evan, what challenges do you typically see in an implementation of this kind and keeping an organization going, and what kind of counsel do you offer to the organization in helping to implement your solution?
That's a great question. Oftentimes what you see happen with other technological approaches is that there can be a desire to focus on the technology, not necessarily on the people impacted or the process and most importantly, how that process fits into the business. In the case of Palo Alto Networks, as with every customer we work with, we want to make sure that we're bringing the Anaplan process that is going to match and fit nicely into all the other processes that any customer is utilizing. That way, it minimizes the risk to the implementation, it maximizes adoption, and working through very quick sprints and cycles so that users feel involved and heard through the overall process is a great way to drive deployment across the board. So a deployment method we call the Anaplan way.
But even the smoothest implementation has to encounter some bumps in the road. And I like that road behind you, Evan, as a metaphor for that. Nick, what were some of the lessons you learned along the way? Maybe things you didn't anticipate, surprises, or just overall lessons based on the implementation process?
It's very important to build a strong backbone or a foundation, as you will, because as you keep using the tool, you're going to keep building more modules. You're going to add more data. You're going to add more processes, and your processes are going to change. So if you build a very strong backbone, you don't have to spend a lot of time changing stuff in the tool. You save time later down in the road.
Yeah.
Very important to organize and constantly clean up your modules. It can balloon up, and if you don't do that, it's very difficult for somebody else to come into the tool and understand what's going on. And you're just very dependent on the person who built those modules. So,
yeah. Jonathan, what were some of the challenges or the lessons that you learned along the way from the business standpoint?
Yeah, one of the key things we took away was to not ask to replicate functionality that existed in, say, an Excel model or a prior tool, and just say copy paste this into the new tool. It's really, like Evan alluded to, follow the Anaplan way and let the technical experts help drive the solution correctly to achieve the right business outcomes.
Yeah.
And making, as Nick just said, make sure you're thinking about the short term, but also the long term, and don't just build something that satisfies you for the next 2 quarters of the fiscal year. Think about where the business is going to be a few years out and try and build that scale. And Nick also mentioned this, but engaging the users early, make sure they're building out the test cases to test it end to end and not just for individual models or individual functional roles and activities.
Good lesson. Too often when technology implementations involve attempts to just shoehorn old processes into new technology, and that just does not work. So I'm wondering if you feel like you hit your goals. What about it, Jonathan? Do you feel like you achieved what you set out to achieve in implementation of this solution?
We did. We came in on time, which for us, there was an end date for the contract of the prior tool. So we had a pretty hard window to hit. So we hit it on time. We maintained the business outcomes that we needed to maintain, and we actually added some more right from the start in some additional demand planning capabilities that we had.
So you're up and running on the solution now, I take it. Let's talk a little bit about the benefits that were derived from the initiative looking back. Nick, from a technology standpoint, what were some of those benefits?
The first benefit was being able to set up a data hub where you can draw data from and spread out to all the different modules according to business function. That way you're not spending a lot of space on them. The second one was, as a model builder, there was a very shallow learning curve. I could get on the tool really fast and start focusing on the business solutions instead of all the technical aspects of it. User adoption was quick. It's very useful to have all our business processes in one tool rather than having some in Excel spreadsheets and then pulling them into Anaplan and working them. So when we started, we did our supply demand planning. Now we have our S&OP process. We have our last time buy. We even pulled in our tech ops team for capacity planning. And so we've expanded a lot since we implemented the solution.
Jonathan, what about on your side? Again, on the business end, any benefits that you saw derived from the initiative?
Yeah, and some of it's similar. The flexibility is one key area, the ability to adjust models quickly to adapt to business changes. That's happened to us quite a bit as our businesses continue to grow and scale. The need for the planning team to support that is, ever changing. And it's given us a lot of options to automate processes that maybe have been done in offline tools or Excel files. Just as examples, over the 2.5 years or so that we've been running Anaplan, we've added a ton of functionality and actually now run our S&OP forecast meetings in the Anaplan. We don't do it offline. We don't do slide decks or anything else. We just do it live in the tool. Nick mentioned some of the models we've added for capacity on repair, logistics, manufacturing, and those have been huge to give insights and help manage the business at our end of the quarter, especially to make sure we have enough trucks to get gear out the door.
Yeah.
Another aspect is scale. As I mentioned, we're a growing business, whether it's in hardware or cloud or software, all of it's growing. So the enhancements that we can make to existing models is key. Adding new models around NPI transitions, different forecasting methodologies like revenue streams for our internal business units, different areas of the supply chain optimization, and we just changed our licensing model, so now we have access to optimization model that we'll start implementing and leveraging. The dashboarding functionality with the new user interface is very, very nice compared to what it used to be. So we're looking to take advantage of that and really give more visibility both at the exec level and to the user level to know where to focus things and what, not just spending time looking through tables and tables of data or reports. And the new management reporting feature, which is huge in my mind that we haven't yet taken advantage of, but that's on our radar to go use that benefit and start creating like slide decks for S&OP, for example, straight out of Anaplan rather than a mix of other sources.
Yeah. Evan, what was your impression of the engagement? How did you come away feeling like you had achieved the goals that you set out to do in partnership with Palo Alto Networks?
Absolutely. I think, I've worked closely with Jonathan and Nicholas from some of the earliest engagements with Anaplan in this direction. And when we started working together, it was very clear they had a clear sort of active pain point they were looking to address, which was the upcoming end of another software tools license period. So a fixed amount of time in which they had to make a decision. And since then, as you just heard, they've been able to really drive from a single S&OP use case to basically full end-to-end advanced planning. And that's what we believe is really compelling about this, is that it helps our clients and our customers enable the business outcomes that they're looking for to achieve. And I think you've heard some great examples from Jonathan and Nicholas now about how they've been able to achieve that across the board.
Okay, so how's the future look for Palo Alto Networks with regard to this tool and just in general? Jonathan, tell me how, might you look for more bells and whistles and more capabilities at a high business level? What are you looking at?
Absolutely. I mentioned a couple of them in the last question. Optimization is something we really want to take advantage of across the board for all of our various financial targets, and how do we plan better to meet those? The connected planning is something we haven't really taken advantage of yet across the business. So connecting into finance and sales operations to have our plans connected, budgets connected, all those sorts of things. That's definitely on the roadmap to keep scaling.
And Nick, in terms of the tech stack, the technology standpoint, what kind of a future do you see? What future needs do you think you're going to need that might fit in with what you've done so far?
I'm really excited about having to use CloudWorks. It's going to solve a lot of problems for us, automating and scheduling stuff. The new UX is really well received by our users. So and it's easier to build in the new UX than it is on the old one. So really excited about that.
Well, great. It's a great story. And I want to thank everyone for joining me to talk about it. Jonathan Morgan and Nicholas Satish of Palo Alto Networks and Evan Kwasny of Anaplan. Thank you all for telling your story. Everybody, really appreciate it.
Absolutely.